Okay, stop video.
Yeah, it like automatically reports to like.
Is it? Yeah.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock. We can call this meeting of the School Building Committee to order. Today is August 24, 2023. Welcome, everybody. See, Tony has her hand up.
Chairman, I would like to add an item to the agenda.
Okay,
Given the communications that we have received from our construction manager, I believe we need an executive session. And I would like to move that we go into executive session just prior to adjournment.
I'll second it. Okay, thank you. To add an item to the agenda, we need a 2/3 vote. So all in favor of adding this executive session, please indicate. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Also, could somebody get rid of the meeting is recorded thing?
Okay. All right. So then that brings us, we will add that just before adjournment. That brings us then to the approval of the August 10 minutes. Is there someone that can make a motion regarding the August 10 minutes? To accept from Mary. Second from Steve. Any corrections?
I just want to correct that I was not present at the meeting. I'm
Okay.
listed as present.
Okay, we will get that corrected. Then do we vote? Oh, then all in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? And Madison will abstain. All right, that brings us then to the opportunity for public input. Is there anybody from the public that would like to address the building committee? Seeing none. Then we'll go on to our updates. And you have the list of topics that Adam has sent around. I think we're going to do these in reverse order. And we'll start the bottom with cafeteria acoustics. So Adam, do you want to kind of run the discussion on this?
Yes, I can, and I'm gonna share screen here. I've joined the meeting also remotely, so I can share the screen. Okay, so cafeteria acoustics. There was a recent visit by the acoustician hired through TSKP. Richard, do you actually want to give a quick update of their findings and timeline and schedule?
Yes. Mark Reber, who is the consultant with Jaffe Holden, that they're the firm that we retained to do a review of the acoustic conditions in the school, did visit the school a week ago Monday, which was on August 14th. It's the first of 2 visits that he promised to perform. The first visit he wanted to visit when the school was empty and did not have children in it. And then the second visit will be when there are children in the school, and he would like to do a comparison of both readings. His conclusion was that the reverberation is much too loud. I mean, you all know that, but now you have an expert saying that. He used his acoustic measuring instruments to take readings, and basically the reverberation times in the spaces that he measured. He looked at the cafeteria. He also looked at a couple of the classrooms on the upper level. The reverberation times were 24 and 43% higher than he expected, which is not good. He also touched the acoustic panels that he could reach through the balustrade on the mezzanine of the cafeteria, and the way he describes it is it feels like there's a membrane on those panels, and the painting of those panels has compromised the acoustics in those, the acoustic performance in those panels. And that's based upon his observations. He also has some recommendations going forward. He actually had 4 recommendations. One is to replace those existing panels with identical or equivalent panels, either painted or unpainted, but as long as they're painted in the appropriate way. The second recommendation is to install new or identical or equivalent panels over the existing panels, again, either unpainted or painted. His third recommendation is to install new panels on the remaining and currently untreated wall surfaces within the spaces. So for the cafeteria, he said it appears that about 700 square feet of additional wall surface might be available, and those areas could be covered with acoustic panels. He also said that that would make a very noticeable difference in the acoustic performance of the cafeteria. As far as the classrooms are concerned, he said there is available additional wall space and on the upper portion of the classrooms. And if treated, the reduction in reverberation would also be significant and very noticeable. He also showed us some pictures in his report of acoustic treatment, some of which probably are appropriate and some of which are not. And I believe, Jeff, you and I talked about this, and you were looking at the available square footages in the cafeteria of untreated wall area that could get additional square footage.
Yeah, I'm coming up with just over 1,000.
1,000 square feet in the cafeteria,
Yeah,
and 125 per classroom, I believe is what you said.
128.
128. So if we comply with those recommendations by Mark Reber, you would see a very noticeable reduction in reverberation and a much improved acoustic performance in those spaces. His fourth recommendation was to add acoustic treatment elsewhere, such as with banners or baffles, trees, sculptures, even ceiling treatment. That could have a significant positive impact. So what's left is for Mark to come back when the school is occupied, and then he'll do his final report. But I did convey through Colliers a copy of Mark Reber's report, which was dated today, August 24th.
Questions?
Yeah, I
Chris?
have a question. Richard, you said that he found that they were,
Reverberation.
I understand, 43% less effective. Is that what I'm getting? Than he expected?
Yes.
What, how did he know what to expect?
Well, he was involved in the design phase of the project. We had him advise us on the treatment of walls, ceilings, and also the treatment of partitions between acoustically sensitive spaces, such as the music room, for example.
So his advice is what we followed for basically the whole building?
Yes.
And yet it seems tremendously under supplied with acoustic panels. It doesn't seem to me as if he made good judgments the first time around, or
No.
perhaps he's not the right guy this time around. What,
No,
Hold
I think
Go ahead.
I think you're missing one point, which is that he confirmed, based on his observation, that those acoustic panels that were installed were acoustically compromised. They're not working the way they should have been working.
Can I just say something? And he's also stating that reverberation times were 24% and 43% higher. So
but you're still talking about replacing the acoustic panels and then adding some. So it sounds as if his initial calculations were not correct.
No. He's either saying that's one of the options is to replace them. Another option is to add them in areas that have no acoustic treatment, because the effectiveness of the painted panels just isn't there.
Brian, have your hand up.
Well, I think actually Chris's question and Richard's response more or less addressed what I was going to raise, but so maybe just to confirm, Richard, what you just said. So you're saying that he's not saying to solve the problem that these things need to be done in some combination, that his position is that if the panels that are in there now, if they were installed and painted properly, if they weren't, I guess, compromised, to use the term you used, that the sound goals that we have, the acoustic goals we have would be achieved. And the only reason why we would be adding additional elements now would be to, as an alternative to rectifying the compromised elements that are there. That's a yes?
That's a yes, that's correct.
Okay, because like Chris, I heard you, I guess I was gonna ask the same question, which is, well, it sounds to me like we're acknowledging the original design wasn't adequate because now we're adding panels, but I guess you're saying that you're only adding panels in lieu of addressing the compromised ones. So,
Yes,
okay,
thank you. Thank you for asking that and helping me clarify. Yes, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
thank you.
Other questions? Yeah, Peter.
So, are we considering, kind of the value add, option of, if we, if we look ahead at replacing panels, adding another option to just even increase the, efficiency of the absorption and reduction of the reverb or whatever. So I just want to understand, like, it's not like option one only, option two only, option three. There, we could perhaps consider a combination of them.
You could consider a combination, yes.
Okay.
And that's where I think we would have to work together with Jaffe Holden to come up with, I think would be a recommendation from us and Jaffe Holden together. I'm very intrigued actually with the idea that he talked about in response to the suggestion that I received from you. You had something called a felt, I can't remember the exact manufacturer's terms, but it was a felt panel that you sent us some manufacturer's literature. And he said, yeah, a felt panel could certainly help. So the actual solution, I think we need some time to work out with Jaffe Holden and make a recommendation to the committee. But bottom line, this is fixable. It's now a question of what's the best strategy.
And aesthetics, right? That we don't want to ruin how gorgeous the building is.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Mary?
Richard, is the painting of the panels only a problem in the cafeteria, or has that been identified as the problem in the classrooms as well?
It's in both locations.
Okay, thank you.
Adam?
Richard, what's the scope of the acoustician's follow-up site visit? Is it while students are in the building and the building is sort of in its natural state to take additional samples? That's the first part. And then the second question is while he's there, can he put a focused review of the classroom spaces in light of this, sort of leading option for felt panels in the classrooms as an add-on?
Yes, I can certainly talk to him about that. I know he was expecting to make measurements when the rooms are occupied, the cafeteria and the upper classrooms. And so I don't have a timetable for when he's going to do that. But as soon as school is ready and occupied, then I could call him and tell him to make an appointment to come up and observe pupils and teachers using those spaces and take additional measurements.
August 31st, 9 o'clock.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought
I
that
have
up
a
because that's
I have a
another,
question. I have a question about the panels.
yes.
Where did the instruction to paint them come from? Whose idea was that?
So the painting of it, these are actually paintable acoustic panels, but you have to follow the manufacturer's recommendations. And that information is in the shop drawings, the submittal that was actually made by the contractor. So it's clearly spelled out in the manufacturer's literature.
So what's wrong with the paint?
It's the wrong paint. The paint that should have been used was a spray paint, a lightly sprayed paint. And instead, these panels were rollered with paint. And that kind of paint, the way it was applied, filled the pores.
Got it. Thank you.
If I could jump in for a second.
Yeah, please go ahead.
The paint was specified. It was a very specific paint listed in the project specifications that we had to go out and purchase and install on the panels. They were called to be painted. We're still waiting on the initial design information that can show the difference between where, this is where I think Chris was heading, was how do we know the delta between what was designed and what's in the field right now? If this gentleman that's performing these tests now was involved in the initial design, that information should be available. We made the request a month ago. And I don't believe anyone's seen it unless we were left off the correspondence. I think that's a good starting point. And we've yet to see that. So the narrative that it's the wrong paint, that they were painted wrong, yet again, is being thrown out there as accusations with nothing to back it up.
Is there a report that we could get?
Yes. So the design team that was on that project did get information from Jackie Holden during the design phase. We can look in our archives and get those copies.
Obviously, we're interested in fixing this, but I'd like to see it fixed, actually fixed, working. But anyway, where I'm headed is the idea that I would like to try, rather than a wholesale, let's do the whole place, try 3 classrooms or 2 classrooms, see what happens, even replacing the panels with exactly the same panels and leaving it at that. And then we can actually see if it's a design trouble or if it's a, some other, if it was a installation and painting issue, or both. But I don't think we should go for a whole, I'd like to
Right,
say
no,
to
I-
the committee, I think we need to do this on a slower basis. I'm sorry to do that to the school, but I think it would be foolish for us to do everything and find out, oh my gosh, it didn't work. So,
Actually, interested in doing the same thing.
yeah, good.
We can put the panels up.
Yep.
Even if they're hanging there, not completely installed.
Yeah. And I see, Peter, do you,
No?
you
Well,
holding
Peter's-
something in?
Peter's struggling- is struggling with that.
Time is of the essence. We have
Right.
kids and faculty members in that condition. Ryan, you've eloquently often pointed out, what it's like to be a dad in that space and to hear kids. And so, I would just caution us. I understand what you're saying, but I also know the sense of urgency that we have. And we have increased numbers using the cafeteria. Last year, we had only 1 grade level per lunch wave. That's not a sustainable practice. And so we're gonna have more kids in that area as it was designed to hold. And, we have teachers in these spaces. And so, however we could expedite it, but I would hate to see us delaying other options that we could just go ahead and try.
Yeah, I
like
agree.
felt.
I think answering the problem in the cafeteria, which I believe is more, from what I can see, it wasn't designed well acoustically, or accommodated well acoustically. So I think we should definitely do something there, whether it's hanging. I love the idea of hanging interesting felt sculptures or something like that. I think it could be interesting and appropriate. But as far as the classrooms go, pulling out panels, putting in new panels, adding panels, I think we could, I'd like to see us do this in a more considered way and see where things go, rather than, again, do a wholesale replacement, which doesn't get us to where we thought we were based on the design to begin with.
Or perhaps we take 1 or 2 rooms,
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right, right. But we have to remember that it's a disruption.
Oh, yeah.
So that's an instructional space. And so teachers have things on the wall, there's artwork, there's kids. From what I'm guessing, removing and replacing a panel isn't just a quick filter change. And so I just would wonder, like, is that an overnight thing? Is that, are we now getting into some materials that would have some odors,
Right.
fume, all of those things. And again, if there's something that we could add to the room to see if
Mhm.
that adjusts, I think I would favor that just given where we are in the school year. If this is summer, I'd be all about what you're saying, but we need something sooner than later.
Well, Mike,
Okay.
Mike,
If I could respond to that,
ahead, Rick.
adding something would be the least disruptive. And for example, in the classroom spaces, there's the wall that's just below the clerestory windows, the high wall. And that doesn't have acoustic panels on it, but if you add panels, it could be done very easily, I'm betting, over a weekend. And you would see the results immediately. Replacing the existing panels, which are recessed into a wall, is much more disruptive. And we would have to have panels cut exactly the same size and fit it in into those recesses. That's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, so, but yeah, the expediency is a big thing. Okay, I think we're good. Everyone knows what, oh, Madison, go ahead.
I guess my question is, if painting is maybe the problem, what do the panels look like when they're unfinished? Can they be unfinished? Is that part of the experiment that we could do? Is if that's part of what we want to do, is have them unfinished and compare them to the finished ones, the painted ones? I guess, is it an option to have unfinished ones, or do they come in different colors? I
Yeah,
guess.
so there's a whole world of panels out there, acoustic panels. The ones that were installed here are a fabric wrapped panel, and that fabric was a sort of a off-white oyster kind of color. But if we go to a different equivalent panel, there's felt panels, for instance, felt fabric. They come in a wide range of colors. And so if you pick an accent color, you could certainly leave them unfinished. And then it would be more appropriate in appearance rather than putting in an unfinished panel that was a little off in color, if you know what I mean. It would look more deliberate than an area that looked unpainted.
Okay.
Randy, if I could just add,
Oh,
these are.
yes, go ahead.
I need to correct the narrative. They're not fabric wrapped panels. Fabric wrapped panels are much different than what you have. Okay, we actually have them here. They have a fiberglass scrim on them. Okay, that's not a fabric wrap panel. There's a big difference, right? Even the NRC ratings on fabric wrap panels are much different than this panel. We've got a general question too. Have there been any issues or complaints of noise in the first floor classrooms?
We don't have Rich here, but I haven't heard any.
I have not heard any, Kate.
Right, so it seems to be the upper classrooms.
Okay, because you have acoustical ceilings in the first floor classrooms.
Right, right.
Do absorb a lot of sound as opposed to the wood ceilings in the second floor classrooms.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't heard any complaints for the lower classrooms.
And Randy, the last thing I'd like to add is
Yes, go
we're
ahead.
hearing 14 to 16 weeks for panels still. Just throwing it out.
Okay,
there.
so long lead time.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
That's important note. Kathy? Can't hear you, Kathy. Can't hear you. You're not muted, but I can't hear you. You have to join the audio. She says, okay. You could chat it if you put in the chat and I would try to read it out. Okay, then I think we can move on. Lightning strikes, RFP, repairs.
Yes, so with regard to the lightning strikes, all of the equipment and those components are operational. What we discussed last time was that the system that was suggested by Kohler Ronan, at the time, I believe they had to clarify one item in terms of certifications, which they've done. So I've reached out to town procurement about the form of the RFP. So now I just need to finalize that document and get it onto the street for bidding for that.
Okay. But everything has been repaired and is working right now. Okay, Tony?
I'm just curious about the mechanism. How did Ben Franklin invented lightning rods? I mean, this is not I don't. But I say this as a person whose house got struck by lightning. So what is it that is going to be done to make this building more secure from a lightning strike specifically?
I don't know if Richard or Jeff can answer that. Lightning equipment is a little outside my wheelhouse in terms of the design. I know that Kohler Ronan came up with it based on the path of the path the lightning appeared to take in terms of, if I recall, there was the scoreboard, and it didn't appear that the building was struck. It was some subterranean path into the building. So they looked at that rather than just having, your standard air terminals. They're putting components and safeguards on the interior is what my understanding is. But again, I don't know if Jeff or Richard can speak more intelligently to that.
So my understanding is that they were going to put in an aerial on or near the pump house. And the way John O'Connell, he's the electrical engineer with Kohler Ronan, described it, this would create an umbrella of protection. Although he did caution that there's no guarantee. It probably would reduce the odds of that building being struck directly. If there were a lightning strike, it would hit the aerial, and that aerial would then be connected by a wire that would be grounded. And so the theory is that lightning would travel down to the ground rather than hit equipment inside the building.
Thanks.
Okay, heat pumps.
With regard to the heat pumps, at the last commissioning meeting, there was discussion of while one of the manufacturer's reps was on site, they had heard while they were standing next to a unit, it failed in real time. And so there was a fan and a compressor that was running, and something was out of sequence where the fan shut off or the compressor shut off again. I'm not a mechanical engineer, but the resolution was that all of the circuit board changes that you've been hearing about, all of the programming, all this, that, and the other, didn't work because of something that was amiss in just the sequencing. So no matter what happened to the actual, the body of the heat pump, it still was being told to shut off a component well soon before it should have. So that was sort of the light bulb moment, as I kind of described it in the last commissioning meeting. There was an email earlier this week with regard to if that had been done and if it was working, but I didn't see a response come through. I don't know if Newfield or Richard, Jeff have more information, but that's the last I had seen.
No, I can't add to that.
So once that's programmed in, we'll report back. There's another commission meeting that should be coming up probably the next week.
Ben or Steve, do you know anything about that? About what Adam's
Any-
talking about?
Any update on the programming for the heat pumps? Or Bill, do you have something?
Yep, I have a little input for that. ABS did come out the end of last week and added a minimum run time for the heat pumps so that they are on for a minimum run time. Since he has done that, we have not had any trips since last, I think it was Thursday. And I've sent an email out to everybody earlier before this meeting, but shortly before it. So that we have not had any problems since we put in a minimum runtime.
So that sounds like a big step forward. Steve, you have something to add?
I just want, Bill, those were for the two problematic, heat pumps, correct?
I asked him to do it. I think he did it on all of them, though.
Yeah, it's, I think that, yeah, I wasn't sure whether you were just trying to fix the two, but I would agree that the vendor really ought to go back to all the heat pumps and do the same thing, change the panel boards, change the sequence, and hopefully you don't have that problem.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Anything else to add? Okay, so that sounds great. Kitchen. Adam, you start, I guess.
We're still on schedule for tomorrow, 8:25 for the comeback work for the vendor, for the dishwasher and the roll-up door and the door lock. Ben or Brian or Steve, is there any update on that? Otherwise, it still was on schedule for tomorrow.
No, they're still on schedule. You'll see them there by 7:15.
I think there's a sprinkler. Yeah, check.
Yeah, so there's questions here that I thought everyone thought it was gonna be the 17th. So,
Right, there was, the manufacturer had emailed, just before the installation was to occur, saying that the unit didn't ship. And so it wasn't being shipped until the 18th, and therefore it couldn't occur. A lot of mechanical manufacturers are having issues with procurement. So Ben emailed us right away, right after he got it, and we rescheduled it to tomorrow. So that, you guys did get the tracking number, right?
It's confirmed with Lancaster.
Okay.
and some of the service personnel are gonna be there tomorrow to try it out. We want to cut it a little closer to the school opening. Okay. So hopefully next meeting we have a good report on that. Playground surfacing.
So the drainage that was talked about in the last meeting, the meeting before, has been resolved. We walked the site just today, myself and Ben and some others, looking at some of the other stormwater items. And it appears to be draining with no issue. So that appears to have been fixed at the one drainage under drain pipe. As part of the last sequence of events, there's testing of the rubberized surface that you see out there. The testing agent did go out. The majority of the tests passed in terms of impact testing to make sure it's the right density and all that. There were a few that the testing agent called into question in terms of there's a piece of equipment, I think there was maybe 3 or 4, where the test height that the testing agent looked at to go do the testing for, you drop it from 5 feet or 6 feet or 7 feet, depending on what the apparatus is, didn't seem to quite match what was out there. So the easy example was there was a seesaw, for the pre-K that's shorter than this table, but it was supposed to be tested from 7 feet, which didn't quite align. It's not like it's a big deck or something to that effect. So the testing playground tester from the town, or procured by the town, is meeting with the manufacturer's rep on site to confirm that all heights match, and then we're testing from the right heights. But otherwise, that's occurring on Saturday.
A quick note, so tomorrow it's supposed to rain all day. So on Saturday, would they also kind of see if the do we know the drainage issue is good? I know it's a separate thing, but after it rains all day tomorrow, will it help us know that this is good for the
We've had
future?
rain since it was
Since
replaced.
done
Newfield confirmed that.
and it worked, and it was okay.
Oh, Richard? Sorry, or someone, it's rained since we had Steve. You might have it.
Yeah, that's correct. It's rained a couple of 3 times. One was fairly substantial. Since that cutoff drain material was removed with 1-inch crushed stone.
Okay. All right. Oh, Peter?
Just wondering about I think there's some striping and lines for the playground. Is that happening?
I talked about it with Ben this afternoon. I see Ben's not in the background anymore, but Brian or Steve, do you know when that's scheduled? I want to say it was the next week or something like that, when they're coming back out for the DOT work.
Yeah, Ben will be right back. I think the email I saw was Monday or Tuesday of next week. Ben,
Okay.
the line striping, what was the date from him?
Line striping for the playgrounds?
Yes.
It's early next week. Because of the rain on Friday, it's not. It was supposed to happen tomorrow, but he's rescheduling to early next week.
Before Thursday, right?
That's what we're shooting for.
That's the plan.
Okay, thanks.
And Tuesday's rain, so probably Monday.
Okay.
Mary?
So getting back to that idea of expediency and students arriving in a week. Are tests going to be done and are they going to be able to use this space? I guess is the short way for me to ask my question.
We're talking about the playground?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the intent. Yes.
And should anything be found amiss on Saturday, do we know if someone would be able, what do we need to do to fix that, if anything? I guess maybe that's
That would
too
need to
hard of
come
a
up on
question to
Saturday if
answer.
there's
Yeah.
something that's, some recommendation, one of the things doesn't get resolved, that would have to come out in terms of what that would be.
So
But the intent is to
just-
open on for school.
just to clarify it for you, it's kind of a weird situation with O'Brien and Sons. They're the designers. They're also under contract with us to furnish and install the playground surfacing. So even though they're the designers, in our discussions with them yesterday, they're prepared to make any corrections that they seem. I think there was a suggestion of lowering the top bar in one of the swings by 4 inches, making that assembly work properly. Brian, that's how it was laid out yesterday. And because of the Saturday rain, I think they're pushing the meeting to 9 o'clock. It was going to be first thing. So I think they were holding off until like 9 o'clock on Saturday. At this point, the goal is to get a release from this inspector on Saturday. So the playground can be up and operational for the school next week.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes. So I'll just reiterate, because Steve's audio is cutting in and out. So because they're both the manufacturer's rep, the designer of the equipment, and the Newfield subcontractor, they have the ability to just unbolt some things and twist down. So let's say there was there was an issue with the swing and it was just too high. They can lower the swing while the tester's right there. So that way it's not just you can't play on the swings. They can adjust it down in real time. So there are opportunities for that as well, as opposed to just thumbs up, thumbs down on a piece of equipment.
Is it usable right now? Are people in the community coming by and stopping by the school and using the playground? Do we know?
Signage is still up that it is not open, but
Okay.
the community is still accessing the area.
And I would
So-
imagine many members of the community would want to do so early next week, in my experience. Early in the week is when people stop by and visit their classroom. Well, let me see if that teacher's in there working. Let's meet on the playground. Let's start to get kids comfortable in that space. I know that families have done that consistently over the years, and that worries me that we're this close.
Well,
I don't know how you two are sleeping at night, but
we're not.
it's pretty nail biting.
I have confidence that we are going to be able to identify the areas that will be open. I think worst case scenario is that we problem solve with the manufacturer there and try to remediate as best we can. But everyone has heard loud and clear that it will be open, right? And so how we get it open, you know, we may have to make some decisions on Saturday, but it will be open. I agree with you. I
Yeah,
know Kate and her
great.
team has an open house where families can visit classrooms. And so we have every intention of having that space open.
Great.
Okay.
I love that positivity.
All right, and retention basin.
So currently retention basin is pumped out. We had some materials testing agent go out there since it's been dry for a couple days and take some soil samples just for additional testing, since there was the opportunity to before the rains come again tomorrow and potentially the day after. Newfield has installed some additional matting, and based on the site walk today, for other reasons, for stormwater issues, there was indication that there's still some work, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, that Stonehenge is still putting some additional seeding around on the banks where there's some gaps, and mowing, I believe he said. So there's still that work that is ongoing. With regard to the actual work identified in CCD 19 for removing soil and addressing the basin through that scope, specified by TSKP and Fuss and O'Neill on the design team. Newfield has indicated that they do not believe that's within scope. Brian, Steve, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong. But ultimately are not proceeding with the remaining portion of that work. And so at this point, the town is reacting to that and looking into what remedies are available to have that work proceed.
Questions on any of that work on the seating, anything? Right. Okay, then seeing no other questions? We can- Oh,
The
this-
stone, the
the stone
wall, the wall. stone.
Our favorite stone cap, yes. So Joe with Colliers actually was at the vendor's shop. Was it earlier this week or late last week? They have 8 of the 12 pieces in from Vermont, where the floods caused havoc. So we're very close to having all this stone available. I think it was scheduled actually that they should have it in hand and delivered on site later next week to start the install. So that's, I think it was like the 29th. I can look back in my text, but it's imminent.
Oh, the alumni house there, so. Okay, thanks. Any other items that are on people's minds? Seeing none, then invoice.
Yeah, I can pull that up and share screen here in a moment. So as usual, there's the draft motion in the packet. Just based on timing of some of the invoices and things, we'll likely have another invoice packet at the next meeting, sort of as an interim. But for the purposes of this meeting, we have invoices from Atlantic, who had some IT equipment, CES, the commissioning agent, Colliers, our testing lab, JP LaRue, who's the playground inspector, and Sonatrol Alarm, who did the additional main entrance lock work through Jamie and town IT and Bill and facilities, for a total of 44,105.47.
Okay, questions? Is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve the invoice packet dated today, August 24th, 2023, including invoices from Atlantic, CES, Colliers, IMTL, JP LaRue, and Sonatrol Alarm New England for a total approval of $44,105.47.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Is there a second? Steve, seconds. Then all in favor of approving this invoice, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Great, and that brings us then to the executive session that we've added. Is there a motion? Oh, Tony's got it.
I move we go into executive sessions pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, section 1-200 sub 6 and section 1-210 sub B for discussions of pending claims. And I'd like to invite Adam Levitas, Scott Pellman, Superintendent Dart, Town Manager Aylesworth, and Attorney Kevin Deneen to join us. Oh, and Principal Katie McCoy.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Mary seconds, thank you. And all in favor, please indicate. Okay. Then with that, we will go into executive session. Anybody that wishes to remain can go into waiting room. I'm not anticipating any other action at the end of this. And so otherwise you can log off. And thank
Question about changing.
Thank
There was a question about changing the date or time of our next meeting because of a possible conflict with the Board of Ed meeting. I was wondering if we could meet at 3 instead of at 4.
it would be hard for the teachers. so
Right, that would
Rich
preclude
could not.
Rich from being here.
Unless Kate let him out.
I don't know if the students are let them out.
Or 3:30? I mean, it's only 5:30 now, so
I mean, we should, I'm hoping we can get everything done. And we'll try to be expeditious at that meeting.
Right, and we can prepare a report for you, and then, if we can't be here, at least you can share it. Unless Kathy wants to alter the board meeting.
I think if we could move it to 3:30, I think that'd be great. Oh,
Yeah, and it doesn't matter to me. 3:30 is,
you Board of Ed meets right here.
At 6:30, yes.
Yeah, so there's a physical limitation as well as
Right, right. And so we could have Rich attend at 3:30 if that's agreeable.
that was quick negotiating over there.
perfect. It's fine with me. Okay.
3:30 on the 14th.
3 weeks from today, not
Yes, that's
2.
3 weeks. Because the second week of September. Okay, so we'll anticipate that. Okay, then that brings us to adjournment. Is there,
I'll move we adjourn.
thank you, Chris. Second, Tony, and all in favor? Please make the sign. And then we will see you at the next meeting. Thank you all.